and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm your host, Jonathan Cilia, joined by my co-host, Rochelle, and here are your headlines for today. MFSA pulled the plug on Brian Tonna's companies. 3 COVID-19 deaths in one day. Junior minister wins libel case after being called whore online. 30 prisoners taken for Rinella Bay swim for good behavior. And court bans travel for pregnant women out of fear that she might get an abortion. Rush, quite a mix of crazy stories today.
100% bonġu Jonathan u bonġu li telespettaturi kollha tagħna. Nibdew bl-ewwel aħbar. L-Awtorità tas-Servizzi Finanzjarji twaqqaf il-kumpaniji ta' Brian Tonna. Skont il-miżuri tal-inforzar tal-Awtorità tas-Servizzi Finanzjarji, iż-żewġ kumpaniji BTI Management u BT International li huma proprjetà ta' Brian Tonna huma projbiti milli jieħdu klijenti ġodda u għandhom jevitaw li jkomplu jipprovdu servizzi ġodda lil klijenti eżistenti. Tajjeb ngħidu li din hija l-ewwel azzjoni tal-MFSA kontra Tonna wara li fl-2016 inqala l-iskandlu tal-Panama li żvela li Brian Tonna waqqaf strutturi offshore dubjużi għal diversi uffiċjali tal-gvern, fosthom iċ-Chief of Staff Keith Cambry u l-Ministru Konrad Mizzi.
Wow, this is a massive development. So as you said, this is the very first action taken by the MFSA against Brian Tonna since 2016, since the revelations. Now, what's interesting to note is that this is just the latest development since Monday, Tuesday, since the massive asset freeze that hit Keith Cambry, Brian Tonna and co. What's interesting to note here is both Brian Tonna and another managing director of Nexia BT, Carl Cini, were both arrested along with Keith Cambry and many other people on Monday and Tuesday. Obviously in Malta, you can only be held in custody for 48 hours, after which you have to be either charged or released. Times of Malta said that the pair were released after being interrogated. We are not exactly sure of the conditions of their release, whether they're out on police bail, but they have been released. But yeah, massive development. It took 4 years for the MFSA to finally have a look at Brian Tonna's companies. They've been hit with a freeze. Obviously, they cannot take on any new clients. They can't offer any new services to existing clients. So quite a big development. We'll have to see how this develops.
Kemm għall-MFSA u kemm anke għall-Pulizija, ġifieri 4 snin tard mill-2016 tajjeb ngħidu li tajjeb li qegħdin jieħdu l-azzjonijiet li hemm bżonn jiġu mittieħda iżda hemm bżonn jieħdu każijiet bħal dawn li jpoġġu lil Malta fuq l-isem tal-aħbarijiet globali iktar bis-serjetà.
You're exactly right, Rochelle. Moving on to the next story, quite a sad story. Yesterday, I'm sure you noticed, we had 3 COVID-19 deaths in Malta in one day. That's the largest we've had so far. That means we've had 13 deaths over the last 11 days. The 3 deaths we had yesterday was a 78-year-old woman, a 91-year-old man, and a 73-year-old woman. What's interesting to note is the 78-year-old woman had tested positive on the 11th of August, and she had recovered on the 28th of August. Unfortunately, then she contracted the disease again, and she passed away yesterday in Mater Dei. Contact tracing has been initiated in Mater Dei, and the other 2 deaths were both in separate elderly homes. But Rush, what do you make of this sudden rise of deaths in Malta?
Jiddispjaċini ħafna u l-ewwel net kondoljanzi lill-familja tagħhom. Iva, rajna żieda kemm fil-każijiet, iżda speċjalment każijiet fid-djar tal-anzjani. Problematika jiena minix epidemista jew tabib, ġifieri ma nafx naqbad ngħid nixtieq li l-politikanti tagħna jerfgħu iktar responsabilità għax naħseb fl-aħħar mill-aħħar ħabba l-iskapitu tal-lobbying tal-big business qed naraw riperkussjonijiet irreparabbli. Sfortunatament qed jiġu milquta l-iktar vulnerabbli u wasta l-politikanti tagħna dejjem ir-responsabilità morali hija tagħna l-individwi iżda l-politikanti tagħna qegħdin hemm biex jiddireġuna u jmexxuna. Jiġifieri nixtieq li fl-aħħar mill-aħħar għal min mhux kapaċi jrażżan lilu nnifsu jkollu imponuti fuqu liġijiet li dawn irażnu ħalli bekk is-sitwazzjoni ma tibqax tigrava.
No, I mean, it is a bit interesting. Yesterday we had 42 cases again. Even though we've had these large increases pretty much every single day in COVID-19 cases, in general, I'd say the Maltese people are quite relaxed. I mean, obviously they are wearing masks in shops, etc., but people are going out. I mean, if you go to Valletta on a weekend, it's pretty busy.
100% u anka inizjattivi tal-gvern, eżempju ħanaraw notte bjanka u diversi attivitajiet oħra li qed jibqgħu iseħħu all-right, miżuri qegħdin ejja ngħidu iżommuhom f'moħħhom jew qegħdin jiġu diskussi iżda n-nies jekk ħaddihom fejn jmorru ħajmorru.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a thought for, the people inside the elderly homes. I can't even imagine what they must be thinking and feeling. I imagine they must be really, really scared. I would be as well if I'm in their situation. So let's see, hopefully something can be done to really minimize this outbreak.
100% x'daw mhux biss ibatu minn problema ta' loneliness, anka issa l-carers jien għandi nannu tiegħi jgħid li qed jidħlu ħdejna jisom aljeni. Ġifieri dan laqas biss kuntatt mal-carers, jek qabel stajt tagħmel eye contact u tara tbissima minn xi ħadd li qed jaħslek u jieħu ħsiebek issa xejn.
Moving on to the next story.
Iva, is-segretarju parlamentari Rozien Kutaja rebħet żewġ każijiet ta' libelli kontra individwi li jgħajruha prostituta ħor fuq il-medja soċjali. Sentejn ilu Rozien fetħet każ kontra Godfrey Leon Ganado u Rachel Williams għaliex dawn fuq Facebook post għajruha kliem mimħawar xejn pjaċevoli. Tajb ngħidu li din l-ewwel darba li fetħet Libel fl-10 snin karriera ta' politika tagħha u rebħithom. Kutajjar dal-aħħar snin dejjem rajnija tadvoka għal drittijiet tal-umani u tikkundanna l-mibeda fuq id-diskors fuq individwi differenti, speċjalment meta jkun bbażi ta' sesswalità jew inkella ġeneru. Il-tajjeb, Rozien kitbet fuq Facebook li illum il-qorti ta' trebħa lil kull tfajla u mara. Iżda din ħan iddiskutuha iktar tard b'każ xokkanti magħna wkoll għandna mistiedna speċjali, attivista feminista, Emily Gallia u ħan idħlu iktar.
We'll get into the details very, very soon into another shocking case that happened yesterday. But on this case of Rozien Kutayar, what's interesting to note is the details of how this case actually happened. So Rachel Williams, on her Facebook wall, this other individual, Godfrey Leon Ganado, had posted a comment. He had said that she was, quote, and apologies for the language this early in the morning, a whore on heat. And that was enough for, for the pair of them to be taken to court and lose a libel case. So Rozien Kutayar was awarded €800 in total in moral damages. That split €300 damages from Godfrey and 500 jointly paid by the pair of them. So this is quite interesting. It might set quite an important precedent.
Yes, importanti, John, imma li hu importanti wkoll li tajjeb orrajt għamilna b'eżempju biha il-qorti ħadet azzjoni u tawhom il-multa. Iżda mhux għax din politikanta u ġiet majra online mela noħduha bis-serjetà u kull persuna u attivist li jiġi meddet li ħajjisparawlux ma nafx xjeddu li ħajamlulu kulħadd jala għajn waħda, speċjalment il-pulizija ma jieħdux azzjonijiet fuq ir-rapporti. Tajjeb iva jalla li l-istandards qed jola, iżda importanti li ma nagħmlux diskriminazzjoni abbażi fuq inti fl-imskala soċjali qiegħed jew x'tirrappreżenta fis-soċjetà. Naħseb li f'dan il-każ kull ħajja hija importanti u l-ebda kummenta mibeda mutajjeb.
No, I think it's essential for a democratic society to treat all types of reports of this nature equally, whether it's a politician or a worker or whatever. And this actually takes us on to the next story about treating people equally. This is a story that got a massive reaction on our Facebook page. I didn't expect people to have such a reaction to this, but
storja serja ħafna. Vittma tal-abuż domestiku.
We're skipping a story, another story. A bit of a positive story before we get to the next one. 30 prisoners were taken for a swim in Rinella Bay for good behavior. This story got over 2,000 reactions online, and it's quite interesting. I mean, the image of a bunch of prisoners, I don't know, in orange jumpsuits or in black and white striped clothes, taking them off and going for a swim in Rinella Bay might be quite crazy, but this is exactly what happened recently. 30 prisoners were taken there for their good behavior, and this is part of a system of privileges that we have in the Corradino correctional facilities. So basically, prisoners can earn the right to do fun things such as play football outside, go for a swim, even have a fenkata. You earn this over weeks or months. You earn this by not being violent, by not smuggling any contraband into the prison, etc., etc. For basically following the rules. It's rewarded for good behavior, and this is something that's been going on since the 80s. I think since the new prison director has taken over, Colonel Alex Dully, he has kind of ramped up the system of privileges. It really goes back to the carrot and the stick method. You know, if you're good, you're rewarded. If you're bad, you're punished. But yeah, a lot of people had a reaction to this. And I think overwhelmingly, surprisingly, people really, really supported this. You know, they said, why not? If they have been good, if they haven't fought for months, should they not be allowed to go for an hour or two at the beach? What do you make of this?
100% interessanti ħafna għax wara li dokumentarju li Lovin Malta pubblika, ħafna nies ħarġu jgħidu li il-ħabs immexxi mill-biża u inti mhux ħadd tagħmel xi ħaġa x'inti kontrollat mill-biża, iżda aħna issa indunajna li jekk inti mhux ħadd tagħmel xi ħaġa x'taf li għandek positive reinforcement li ħadd tkun looking forward għalihom biex għax min ma jkollux abtit fenkata jew jaqbes qabża fil-baħar jew jilgħab logħba futbol. Fl-aħħar mill-aħħar huma affarijiet pożittivi li kull persuna għandu jesperjenza f'ħajtu u naqbel magħha ħafna din l-inizjattiva.
Definitely let us know in the comments below what you think of this. Should prisoners be given rewards for long-term good behavior? Should prison be a place of punishment or reformation? Definitely let us know in the comments below.
U tajjeb ngħidu li m'għamlux distinzjoni bejn għalfejn in-nies din il-ħabs, ġifieri la darba din il-ħabs kollha ġew trattati bl-istess mod u jekk huma kellhom imġiba tajba ġew rewarded tal-imġiba tajba li huma kellhom.
That's exactly right. Very good point. Among these 30 prisoners, there were murderers. They were petty thieves. So you had the whole gamut of criminals there. And what's interesting to note is from the 30 prisoners that were there, 25 of them were Maltese and about 5 of them were foreigners. Obviously, in a recent report that we made on Lovin Malta, we revealed that around 50% of the prison population is local. The other 50% is foreign. You can find the breakdown on lovinmalta.com. Moving on to the final story, a shocking story.
ħafna dan għaliex vittma tal-abuż domestiku ġiet imċaħda mill-qrati tagħna l-libertà li tivvjaġġa wara li allagatament is-seħeb tagħha jgħid li din ridet tivvjaġġa biex tagħmel abort. Id-drittijiet u l-libertajiet fundamentali tagħha daw ġew miksura għaliex il-qorti ħarġet inġunzjoni proviżorja li ilha fis-seħħ mill-ġimgħa l-oħra dan għaliex is-seħeb tagħha qal li din ridet issifer biex tittermina tqala tagħha. Women's Rights Foundation irrappreżentaw il-vittma u qalu li dawn l-allegazzjonijiet kienu folots. Iżda il-qrati iddeċidew li xorta jieħdu din id-deċiżjoni. Issa dan il-każ tant kien xokkanti li ħafna attivisti għamlu protesta spontanja il-bieraħ quddiem Kastilja. Magħna għandna mistiedna speċjali Emily Gallia li hija parti mill-grupp Young Progressive Beings u magħha niddiskutu aħjar din l-azzjoni. Issa ngħaddu għall-filmat tal-protesta tal-bieraħ.
Okay, so that was some footage of yesterday's spontaneous protest outside of the courts after this shocking case hit the news. In the office today with us, we have Emily Gallia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to start off by kind of getting your reaction to the case. So obviously, Rochelle has just kind of broken it down. But why is this case so egregious?
Well, I mean, to begin with, of course, we all know that Malta has a blanket ban on abortion. However, it is perfectly legal to seek an abortion abroad, which means that even in this case, whether she was actually planning to have an abortion, which is actually false, she intended on keeping the pregnancy, but even if she did seek the abortion, she was well within her rights under law to do so. This is why it is ultimately so shocking that her passport was seized, and ultimately her rights to free travel, her right to privacy, her right to bodily autonomy were all breached, which is ultimately shocking and unacceptable.
So some people were describing this situation as a hostage situation. So this is the first time I had ever heard of this. Is this a common thing that an ex-partner would try to infringe on their partner's rights in some way or form?
This particular case, I would say, is definitely unique, but not in the sense of domestic violence victims, because ultimately it's nothing new that, you know, domestic violence victims and domestic violence cases are ultimately ending up, you know, in very unjust situations where they aren't treated with the dignity and support that they deserve, and their abusers are believed over the victims, which is, you know, something that you wouldn't expect, because ultimately the law is supposed to protect the victim, not the abuser, the perpetrator.
So yesterday, obviously, you organized a spontaneous protest. What was the goal of this protest?
Basically, we were, it was the morning, the hearing had just come out, and we were obviously all very shocked. I think that was a sort of communal sense of shock, you know. Everyone was sort of read the story and they were waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like maybe there was a reason why her passport was taken, but the more information came out, the more we realized there wasn't. And this, of course, was highly problematic. So what we basically decided was, you know, some texts, some press releases just aren't enough. We need to be outside of the courthouses, and we need to state exactly why this case is unfortunately as messed up as it is, to be frank.
No, I know, Rochelle, yourself, you're quite involved in this. What was your reaction to this?
Indignation kbira u bla dubju was li dawn l-affarijiet kif qalet Emily stess, ġifieri fl-aħħar mill-aħħar jekk ħabba il-jurisdiction tagħna il-limiti huma li huma tajjeb ngħidu li Malta barra l-Vatikan huwa l-unika pajjiż fl-Ewropa li għandu a total abortion ban. Ġifieri din mhux talli jekk trid tittermina ma tistax tagħmelek, ma kienx ħa tagħmelek, imma mhux talli ma tistax tagħmelek f'pajjiża talli tittieħu r-riskju u tivvjaġġa u l-qrati aġixxu b'dan il-mod fuq allegazzjonijiet folot li laqas biss kienu tagħha, ġifieri dispjaċir kbir u importanti li dan l-attiviżmu jibqa' iseħħ. Tajjeb ngħidu l-lejla iktar tard illum.
Yes, today we are gathering again at 5 p.m. outside of the courthouse.
Wow.
We obviously want to keep up the pressure as much as possible until her passport is given back to her.
U Emily, jekk ikun hemm iktar nisa jew persuni f'din is-sitwazzjoni, x'għandhom jagħmlu, kif għandhom jirreaġixxu? Nafu li hawn diversi entitajiet bħal Doctors for Choice, hemm xi app ġdida.
Of course, Women's Rights Foundation are an incredible organization. They provide free legal advice to victims of abuse and anyone who is ultimately seeking advice in a difficult situation. Recently, FPAS was launched. It's an app where if you might find yourself in a situation where you have an unwanted pregnancy, you can find scientifically accurate, unbiased information and assess your options, basically.
U jekk in-nies iridu jsibuha jiddownloadjawha fuq il-mobile.
Yes, it's an application on your phone and you can download it from both Android and iPhone.
So we'll definitely be following the demonstration today, Emily. This is, like I said, a case that shocked us at Lovin Malta. It shocked our readers for sure. I think a lot of people were in support of your demonstration yesterday. So we'll be following today. And thank you once again, Emily, for coming in.
Grazie
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
From myself and Rochelle, have a day full of lovin'.